Testing again. It zooms in on my face really weirdly. Okay. Where the hell did July go? Alright, let's just go for it. Hi, I'm Chanel. I'm a recent college grad figuring out my life while I knit, spin, and design in New Jersey. So today is August 13th, and this is episode 28 of the Pipernell podcast. It's been a while since I've podcasted. The last half of my birthday month, July, kind of got away from me, and not exactly all for fun reasons. I'll talk about them kind of in detail. I won't be able to cover everything that I've been doing over the past month since I last recorded, but the format of this episode will be kind of me telling stories about some major events that happened and kind of the projects that orbit those moments as I was like bringing them around. This past month has been full of travel, so I've been bringing projects along onto trains, commute knitting in public. Yeah, a lot happened, including a broken phone. So it rained, then my phone stopped working, and I sent it off for repairs. But then my family found out that we still had insurance on it, so I got a free new phone. And I still have all of the vlogs and stuff that I was meaning to record on my old phone before it broke, and I am just rambling now. So anyway, I'm back, and a lot has happened. This episode won't be able to capture everything, so this is me just explaining major events, and there are various projects orbiting those moments, kind of like how I did my moving episode back in episode 16, I think, Knitting in Transition. This is centers of temporal gravity, the centers being moments in time that pull in what I was doing and everything just orbits around it, like it's, gravity. Something like that. My degree's in physics, but I'm not really using it. Anyway, so on social media, you can find me on Instagram, Ravelry, Facebook, Patreon, as Pipernell, Pipernell. It's with or without a space, depending on where you are. So I'm most active on, I would say, Instagram and Ravelry and Facebook. Patreon, I know I need to get better about putting up subscriber-only content, but basically, if you like this channel, if you like my podcast, and just my general vibe and my body of work, I would totally encourage you to support that on Patreon, and you could get cool bonus content like extra videos. It helps me fund giveaways and stuff, and yeah, wow, I am really out of the groove. So, quick overview of what I got. Before diving into the meat of the stuff, I have some quick news, and then basically the 3 stories that have been major events. And all these acquisitions, whips, my FOs and stuff are going to be mixed in there, so I'm not organizing this episode based on projects, but more the moments in time where these projects were being worked on. So first of all, let's get started with news. So the Garden State hat pattern is out. This is my first ever hat pattern. I have the sample right here. I keep meaning to give it to a friend, but I keep not seeing her. So it is this slouchy beanie that has a lace pattern. You can choose between having a lace accent or repeating the lace all the way around the hat for a nice lacy beret look. And either way, you get this nice slouchy, casual look. And it really shows off a nice solid or semi-solid worsted weight yarn. So to celebrate this hat pattern release, I am holding a 20% off sale on all of my patterns in my Ravelry store. So you don't need a coupon code or anything to claim your discount. Just add the patterns that you want to your cart and check out, and the discount will be automatically applied. So last bit of news. This was meant to be the July Patreon funded giveaway, but because I was not able to record in the last half of July and really run this giveaway properly, I'm extending it so that it is the July and August Patreon giveaway. So I'm giving away 2 balls of Drops Fable, which is their sock yarn, and I have 4 balls in total, 2 of 2 different colorways, and you are able to choose any 2 of these. So I'm going to be opening up a thread in the Ravelry group, the Pipernell podcast, for this giveaway. So just go to that thread, answer the prompt, whatever I put there. I haven't come up with a prompt yet. And you will be entered to win this. I feel like I've waited kind of a long time to podcast. It's just, things have just been really hectic. So I guess I'll get into the first story, which, wow, was almost a month ago. So my birthday weekend, my birthday was on the 16th of July. I was traveling and actually teaching down at the Jersey Shore at a store called Frame and Fiber. The owner's name is Paige. You might have seen her around the internet as Paige the Framer or Paige Miller. And she's just an amazing person. And our mutual internet friend, Mars, of the Hey Brownberry podcast and overall amazingness, linked us up because we were in the same state and I'm reasonable traveling distance with from her, about me teaching a workshop at her shop. So after some internet back and forth over email, we decided that I should teach the 2 at a time sock class that I've been test driving with my knitting group. So this is my first time taking a workshop that I developed and teaching it in a store, and it was really exciting, and I ended up teaching it on my birthday. So it was like the best way for me to spend my birthday, teaching something that I love to people who are, you know, really passionate about the craft, and getting to travel and check out a new place. So, for more context, I am in North New Jersey, and specifically East Orange, which is close to Newark / Montclair, that area that people kind of, it's the group of suburbs that people kind of commute. A lot of people commute from these suburbs into the city, so it's all connected by trains. And Paige's shop, Frame and Fiber, is down on the Jersey Shore in Point Pleasant. So I took the bus. Actually, that morning I kind of dropped the ball, so I actually took an Uber to Newark Penn Station, and then from Newark Penn Station I took the train down to Point Pleasant. I did vlog this, and this was saved when I got a new phone due to the wonders of data recovery, so either at the beginning of this episode there was my vlog stuff, or it's going to be in a separate video, or even both. I don't know. You can tell I really don't have my shit together right now. Anyway, so the class went really well. I got to Paige's shop it's just a short walk from the train station. Got to hang out with her for a bit, and then the students started trickling in, and we started. So everyone had to bring their own materials. They brought 100 grams of sock yarn and an appropriate needle size for the gauge, and got to Judy's Magic Cast On. That was the beginning of the class. And then I taught people the flow of 2 at a time knitting in the round, and off they were on their socks. And by the end of the class, everyone definitely had a pair of socks in progress, which I count as a 100% success rate. And it is up to me and Paige to kind of do a check-in of our students. But from my self-evaluation, I think the class went pretty well, and I hope that everyone learned a lot. And more about Paige's shop. So she is down on the shore, and it's called Frame and Fiber because it's a combination framing and craft store. It was originally a framing shop, and that's how she started when she started working there years ago. And as she started getting into knitting and local craftspeople and got connected with artisans in the area. She started stocking yarn and local pottery and locally sewn bags, and that was one of the students, April, the woman behind Daisy Lane Designs. She was one of the students. I'm blanking on your name. I'm so sorry. People during the class were calling her Daisy, and so I wanted to say Daisy, but I know her name starts with an A. April, Abby. I'm sorry. I don't think you watch this anyways. Or maybe you do, and then you unsubscribe because I didn't update for forever. And okay, whatever. Babbling. So, as a thank you for running the class, Paige gave me a very generous gift bag, which also I appropriated into my birthday gift. So let me show you the yarny stuff that she gave me. So this is stuff that she stocks in her shop. So if you are ever in the area, you should totally go and see. She has a great mix of commercially dyed yarn that's more in the mid price range to higher price range, like Malabrigo, Cascade. It's a good range of yarns that if you're looking to go one step up from like big box store acrylics, you get a good range. And she also stocks some indie dyers, which is awesome, and that she was able to get them, just buy a collection of them and stock them. So the first skein that I got from her is from Legacy Fiber Arts, and this is awesome because I am not on top of my online shopping enough to be able to buy this on my own if I were to just like be on Etsy shopping. Excuse me. So this is the Cozy Toes base, which is their 80-10-10 superwash merino, cashmere, and nylon base. So it's super soft and squishy. It's 4-ply. It's 435 yards to 100 grams skein. And this is one of their Gilmore Girls series. Dean? I never watched Gilmore Girls, so shoot me now, I live under a rock. But it has some great berries, greens, even a little tiny bit of gold, and it's all speckled throughout the skein. I have no clue what I want to do with this. This is a very special skein, so I will take some time to let it sit in my stash and just marinate and wait for me to come up with an appropriately special project for it. The next skein that she gave me in her delightful little package is a skein from Fable Fibers. So this, I don't know too much about this dyer, but she had an entire shelf, an entire big basket of their yarns, and it was a variety of bases, but this is their DK base, the Biography DK, which is 100% superwash merino, and it's 231 yards to 100 grams, and it's this really nice limey green, mostly limey green with spots of a deeper green, and I would love this on my head. I think this would make a great hat, and if I have leftovers, mitts. I don't know. Again, have no clue what I want to do with these skeins because they're so special. So I should probably stop before I just turn this into a brainstorming episode and never get to the rest of my content. So besides the yarn, well, she contained the yarn in this awesome tote bag, which has her shop's logo on it. This is a great piece of design. And she came up with it herself, so she's very multi-talented. So I got this nice sturdy canvas tote bag, and I've been using it to carry around a large project that I'll talk about later. And then I also got this Notions bag. I could keep a lot of stuff in here. It's a large Notions bag, and it's very well lined and padded. It's very squishy. This is from Daisy Lane Designs, which she sells in her shop too. So I feel like this is kind of an infomercial for Paige's shop right now, but it was seriously an awesome experience, and it would be such a great destination. I mean, it's on the beach. She hosts knit nights on the beach during the summer. She is really well in tune with her local community, and just it would be great to spend a day on the shore and then get to knit and shop at her shop, and I am definitely planning on going back. After the class, she took me out for pizza, and it was great pizza. It was just a great time getting to talk with her, and yeah, I love you, Paige. So besides that, birthday vibes that weekend, I got some more yarn. This story is the closest that you'll get to an acquisition section in this episode. So a friend of mine in my knitting group, Leslie. Hey, Leslie! I think you watch this sometimes. So if you're ever watching this, thanks for this yarn. This is Studio de Laine Cactus Yarn Studio. I think it's called just Cactus Yarn Studio. I'm not sure what the Studio de Laine is. They are from Quebec. They are an indie dyer in Quebec. So their labels are bilingual, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the French. But this colorway is called S'mores, which is perfect. And I definitely see this in a shawl, even though it's an 80/20 superwash merino nylon blend. But this would just be great as a complement to something that's kind of on the crazier end of my color palette. And this is a nice staple yarn that I got, that she got me. She totally got my color palette right. I know I'm all about the earth tones. So besides the yarn, she also gave me a set of blocking mats, which I really need, and I should stop using my bed and sleeping on the floor when I block stuff. And she also got me a copy of Wonder Woman, which I've been working my way through. And I don't have time to talk about that, but I'm enjoying it so far. So thank you so much, Leslie. You are an amazing friend to have, and I'm just so glad I got to know you through knitting circle. And then the last acquisition I have, it was a treat to myself. This is a sock blank from Maria of the Ninja Chickens podcast, and that's also her Etsy shop, Ninja Chickens. And she has been eco-printing with natural materials. These are actual imprints of leaves. I'm not really sure how the process works. Definitely need a mordant, and I think natural, if you treat the fiber with the mordant and kind of just lay natural materials on the fiber over kind of a curing process, the pigments from the dye sources just seep into the fiber and leave wonderful imprints. So I'm not really sure what kind of leaves are on here, and there are some flowers, which are the purple spots, but it is just a really beautiful, unique piece, and I'm so glad I got my hands on one. This was a treat to myself. So this is 75/25 superwash merino nylon, and she included a little ginkgo leaf stitch marker. That's her little chicken. It's cute. Eco-printed with lupin, fennel, delphinium, oak, and hibiscus. So that's just really cool. And I'm a huge fan of her and her podcast and her overall vibe of getting as much in tune with your surrounding landscape as possible and making the best out of natural materials. And hi, Maria. Thanks so much for the sock blank. Happy birthday to me. So that was basically it for that story. It was my birthday weekend. I had lots of fun. It was filled with friends, yarny stuff, traveling. I did take the train ride down to the beach and back was just so pleasant, and I had knitting with me. It was a great day. I got home, I was very exhausted, but in the best way possible. Next is story number 2. I've had a couple of fun weekends in New York City, so I'm kind of rolling a couple of weekends into this story, but the main project for this segment is my helicase scarf. So this has gotten quite a lot of work done on it. I'll show you it first and tell you about where I was working on it. So first weekend I was working on it, I first time I went to the city, I took 2 trips into the city, had this with me both weekends. I took it with me to Shamika's party of Mika Mika knit, blah, 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 of Mika Mika stitch markers and knit night with Mika Mika, and she invited me over to her place for her birthday, and many other people were there knitting, including Kristen of Yarngasm, Cecilia of Creative Ceci. I met lots of new friends. It was super fun. I met getting pearly with it from Nitty City, and actually so on the way to Shamika's, I stopped by Nitty City for the first time ever. I didn't get anything for myself. I stopped to pick up a little favor for her, and I hope she enjoyed it. And I actually ran into... I'm blanking on all the names today. So, I ran into one of the women who worked at Nitty City, or she saw me floating around. And then later at the party, we saw each other again, and she was like, wait, you were just at Nitty City? I'm like, yeah, I was just at Nitty City. Oh my god. And we were just sitting and knitting and chatting, and it was so much fun. And I hope to run into them again, all those people again. I'm feeling really awkward so far with recording. I hope it's not showing. While we were sitting and knitting and eating great Trinidadian food, great Trini food, which was cooked by Shamika and her mom, and her entire family was just so involved in the party. It was amazing. And Trini food is a combination of various, it's similar to other Caribbean cuisines. It has Indian influences too because of the diaspora. And it was just so good. There was curry, there was bread that was a lot like naan. I forget what it's called. There were these little chickpea bites that were amazing, and I'm still thinking about them. And then at the end, it was all topped off with Shamika's signature rum cake, which I took a slice home, and I kind of just kept it in my fridge and slowly ate it over the course of a couple days because I wanted to stretch it out. And yeah, we sat, ate, drank. The rum punch was amazing. It had guava juice in it. I love guavas. And we were working on our knitting projects. I was working on this healing case scarf. So this stitch marker, this progress keeper on it, is where I was during the party because she passed around a bag of her stitch markers that she made for us. And I put the marker on at the party, and this is how far I've gotten in the 3 weeks that it's been. So a little bit more about this scarf. The yarn is Pancake and Lulu, who is a dyer in Princeton, New Jersey. And it's on 2 different fingering weight bases. The first, the off-white, is her twist fingering, which is superwash merino, nylon, and bamboo. And it's in the colorway Bone. She dyes all of these colorways to order, and you get to choose her base. And then the black is on her sparkle fingering base, which is superwash merino, nylon, and stellina, and the colorway is charcoal, so it's like almost a black. And I chose 2 high contrast colors because, as you can see, the design is meant to be on the ornate side, and you start with a double helix of DNA. It splits up into 2 single helices, and they continue for a while. This is the main portion of the scarf, and I'm getting to the second end of the scarf where the DNA merges back up, the single helices are combining again, and then they're going to be a double helix again, and then I'm going to end the scarf. So the way that's accomplished is, this is my own design, by the way. So this, there are 4 charts in the pattern. This is chart 1, about from the bottom to where my finger is right now. And then chart 2 goes from where chart 1 leaves off about to up here, where my pinky is. And then chart 3 covers, so chart 2 is a repeatable double helix pattern, and then chart 3 is the transition between the double and single helices, and then chart 4 is the single helices over and over. So for the second half of the scarf, instead of going charts 1, 2, 3, 4, you're going to follow charts 3 from top to bottom, chart 2 from top to bottom, and then chart 1 from top to bottom. I did go with the backwards chart reading just because, as after talking to a few people, the people who knit this pattern are probably going to be on the advanced side and very comfortable with charts and color work. So I should be pretty fine telling people to read charts backwards. I don't want to make a whole chart that's just upside down of a chart that's already in the pattern, because that will be kind of a pain with my software. And also, that would mean that the pattern's twice as long and would take twice as much paper, and it would just be great for concision and to conserve paper. So, yeah, reading charts backwards. Well, reading charts upside down instead of reading bottom to top, read from top to bottom. I'll walk you through it in the pattern. Don't worry about it. The other weekend that I brought this along with me, also to New York City. So Shamika's party was in Brooklyn, like the far end of Brooklyn, at the end of the L train. The second weekend, I was more all over the place. I first went to Brooklyn to see a show put on by a friend of mine who is in theater, and so it was kind of an interactive theater / series of workshops that was all centered around bodies and healing, and it was a participatory kind of immersive theater experience. It was very centered on people of color, especially queer trans people of color, and so it was a really fun show because it invited us to come in and play during the different kind of skits. Some were more skits, some were more like an exercise, like where they'd ask you a question and then you'd respond or give you some prompt. Like the first thing was we stood around a bowl of water and everyone was asked, what is something that is taking your energy? And we would write it on a slip of paper and then follow that bit that was taking our energy with an I don't give a fuck. And rejecting that thing that's sucking our energy and then burning it and chucking it in the bowl of water. So it was a bunch of exercises that we could really carry into our everyday lives. If I'm not going to be burning slips of paper every day, but showing me that I can, if something's draining me, I can take it, write it down, acknowledge it, and then kind of throw it away and reject it in a way. It gives me power over things that are draining my energy. So it was really cool, and their collective's called Saltwater, so look out for shows if you're in the Brooklyn area. So I went with a friend of mine, so they showed up, and we met up at the theater, and then we had some time to kill because we were going to have dinner with some friends. So we actually found a really cool place called the City Reliquary in Brooklyn. This is in Williamsburg. It was in Williamsburg. I was trying to remember if it was on the border of Williamsburg in a different neighborhood. But it's called the City Reliquary. I will link all of this in the show notes. But it was a very small but very packed museum of New York local history. And they had like rock samples from the bedrock underneath New York. They had artifacts and tchotchkes. Tchotchkes is really the best word to use here. From the 2 world fairs that were held in New York. They had a rotating exhibit, and the exhibit that was on display was archaeology from a New York classroom, a primary school classroom, where kids had discovered kind of this treasury of everyday objects and ephemera that were underneath their school floorboards. So they found like notes that kids from the 1800s had passed around, and buttons that they had collected, and food labels, and it it's a collection of mundane items that shows how much life has changed from back then, but also the ways that life hasn't changed and that the way humans live and think are still alike in a lot of ways. It was really cool. So I would highly recommend that place. And we had a lot of time to kill, so we took the train from Brooklyn back to Manhattan, and we were wandering around Chinatown for a bit. We knew dinner was going to be in Chinatown. We were going to Little Sheep Hot Pot. I love Hot Pot. And we found a cute little tea shop. It's called Sun's Organic Tea and Herb, and they had a great selection of teas. And that's actually what I'm drinking right now. I need to calm down. I am drinking some of their apricot black tea, and it's black tea, but with a nice shot of fruity flavor from pieces of dried apricot, and I think they also put pieces of dried mango in there. So yeah, it was just a really fun time. After the tea shop, then it was about dinner time, and we had a group of about 8-9 people all crowded around our pot of boiling soup and dipping in things. And if you haven't had hot pot before, it's a really communal, family style dinner where you have a pot that's on a gas stove ours was an electric stove. But basically, you have a pot of soup that's being cooked in front of you as you move through the meal. And you're given the broth, and then you're given all of the rest of what should go in the soup uncooked. So you get plates of raw meat, uncooked noodles, uncooked veggies, and you put it in the soup and cook it to your liking. And then you eat the soup and the fillings and everything, and it's really fun to do with friends as a group. I would prefer to do it at home, but going out to eat is also fun. So after hot pot, we were stuffed, but we were really close to someplace that people who are on Instagram probably have seen trending. We were close to taiyaki ice cream, which is the ice cream cones that you see in a fish-shaped bun, and inside is different kinds of fillings, and then they squeeze the soft serve ice cream on top. It was really good. It was just a really good day. So yeah, I had the Helicase scarf with me, knitting on it while I was going around New York City. It's been all fun and games so far, but this next story can be on the heavier side, so trigger warning for several things. Police, hospitals, mental health discussion. So the third story is that I've been overcoming a cold, and there was a period of about 2 days where it was interacting with my mental health. I was both really sick, really miserable physically, and then I was feeling really depressed, and it was just this really nasty interaction of I am feeling crappy physically, it is making me feel crappy emotionally and mentally, and those two things fed into each other, and I was feeling, there were 2 consecutive nights where I was feeling really suicidal, and I was like crying in my bed. And on the second night, I try to reach out to friends on Facebook, and in the moment it can be not the greatest at reaching out individually, and I'll like post something on Facebook, and I shared it to a friend list. You can set privacy settings on Facebook, and I shared it to a friend list that I had handpicked of people that I trusted with my mental health issues. One of those people decided to call 911 on me, and 2 police burst into my apartment with 2 EMTs, and they inspected me. They interrogated me. There's really no other way to describe it, and it was terrifying. I had fallen asleep with some cold medication in my hand, so they burst in and saw an unconscious person with pills in her hand, so I woke up to police flashlights in my eyes, and it was terrifying. I saw their guns, and look, I felt really unsafe. And as they were inspecting me, nothing was being done with my consent. They were touching me, they were grabbing my arms and inspecting me for marks and self-harm. And then once I told them about the Facebook status that I had posted, they said they judged me to be unfit to be on my own, so they took me to the hospital, and I was hospitalized for a night. And at the hospital, I was still feeling really sick. My throat was really stuffy. My throat was really sore. I was really congested. I hadn't even gotten to take my cold medication because I fell asleep with it in my hand. So I was at the hospital, sick, depressed, and just... They gave me water. They had me fill out a bunch of paperwork. They asked me questions constantly. I had to take a blood test, and that was it. They didn't give me any medicine. They didn't provide me with any counseling. They just kind of held me there. I was just in a holding cell, a sterile room with nothing but a bed for the entire night. I was up for most of it because I was drifting in and out of naps between doctors and nurses coming in to ask me more questions. Some of them were just redundant. So by the end of it, when they decided to release me, it was 3 a.m. and I was like, can I just sleep? Just let me sleep and then I'll go home in the morning. And they let me, and I walked out of the hospital on my own. I called a Lyft to go home on my own. I got McDonald's on my own. It was just such a useless hospital trip that I hope, the person who called me, I know they had good intentions, but the real consequences of their action was that I was placed in a potentially really traumatizing situation that was also potentially dangerous for me, because calling the police on a mentally ill person, especially a mentally ill person of color, that can lead to, if I had panicked, that would have escalated the situation, and possibly the police could have taken out their weapons and tried to restrain me, and if they had judged that the situation was right, they would have used their weapons. So, emergency services aren't the only option. I just want to tell people that. And this can be very American specific. I know our systems will work a certain way if you're in the UK, if you're in Australia, if you're in another country, your services will work differently, and maybe they might be trained differently. But over here, I honestly don't trust the emergency services as much. So yeah, that was my hospital adventure. And I spent a day running around to try to investigate who called and what information I rightfully have the access to. And this was a day where I walked around, and I went to a fire station, I went to a police station, and then went back to the hospital. This was all walking. I just kind of meandered over. And then I just ended up back at the library. So, because I had just given up. So I had a project with me there at the library that I was just chilling out after running around trying to find information on my hospitalization. Because if you boil it down, this is a person that has my address, was able to extradite me from my home without my consent. And this is someone that I want to make sure uses my private information in a way that is actually in my best interests. So, I was working on my bounce blanket, which is a commission, and it is almost done. The blanket part is. I still have to make a coordinating cardigan, but the yarn is Drops Muscat, which is 100% mercerized cotton in 6 different colors. So you have, starting from the bottom, this color progression is apple green, then you have mint green, then you have sky blue, denim blue, and just normal blue, which is like this rich cobalt blue that I really like, but it did not look like the blue online. Just a warning, if you order colors from Drops, their colors might not match the swatches on the website. That's in my experience, in my limited experience. So the pattern is the Bounce Blanket by Tin Can Knits, and I just want to say it's a really addicting knit, which is, I memorized the pattern pretty easily. This is one repeat, and you just repeat it over and over until you get to the end, and you just end the blanket. So it was great to have when I was kind of frazzled from a long day of running around, and I didn't want to look at a pattern. I had it on the go. Yeah. The only thing is, this pattern is going to have lots of ends to weave in. I've woven in the ends for a half of it because I've also been running around to just, if I'm at the library or something, if I'm out for errands, I find an hour or so to sit, I decided to weave in the ends, and that was a very productive use of my time. So yeah, this is kind of a productivity project. Sure. So those were the 3 stories around which my knitting was revolving, orbiting, so on. So after all of that excitement, I have been working on some projects just for me. So, the recovery. What have I been doing just to regroup myself and recenter myself and really try to find some stability in everything that was going on? So, these are all just personal projects. I've been working on a pair of socks. I know I'm far behind on the sock marathon now, but whatever. It's all for me. These are my Flatland socks, or they will be. They're only the cuff basically right now and some patterning. The yarn, this bright hot pink yarn, is Zen Yarn Garden Serenity Sock, which is an MCN base in the colorway It's a Girl, very gender stereotypical. The pattern is Flatland by Kawa Coffee. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. It's a quality pattern, very well written, great charts, very detailed, and this pattern must have taken so much work to write. I am really grateful to the author for making it available for free. So it is a cuff down pattern, so cuffs up here, and it has all over patterning with twisted stitches that form geometric shapes. The pattern is named Flatland in honor of the book by Edward Abbott, which is half a mathematical exploration of different dimensions and what it means for something to be one-dimensional, two-dimensional, three-dimensional, and part social satire. So it's really cool how he takes mathematical concepts and then kind of uses them to create social commentary. But basically, in the book, you have a very stratified society, quite like Victorian England, where the lowest class people are men, are the less sides they have as polygons. So a triangle is the lowest class of man. And then you have quadrilaterals, then you have pentagons, all of which are shapes formed in the twisted cables, which is super cool. And then, as this is a satire, I do not endorse the views that the author satirically puts forward. So in the book, in that Flatland, women are lines. They are one-dimensional beings with no understanding of the second dimension, which is where men exist in the higher plane of existence. Of course, this is all just to ridicule how stratified and narrow-minded Victorian society is, because these are one- and two-dimensional beings. They have no understanding of the third dimension, which is where we real-life humans are, and they believe that they know the entire universe, but they don't even understand this whole higher plane of existence that other beings are at. So one of the characters is introduced to a three-dimensional being, and his mind is just blown. So basically, It is a great social satire. This is a great... Flatland is both a great book and a great sock pattern. I would really recommend this. It's just that the twisted stitches can be a little mentally exhausting, and honestly, it's taken me a while to finally get the logic of this sock pattern. So I don't have the pattern memorized at all, but even following it, it took me a while to understand, oh, okay, I need to do this in the next row, and it helps me do a pattern a lot better if I understand why is one row like this and the next row is like that? Where is this going? It helps me not to just see and understand what the symbols are, but understand where they're going in the pattern, if that makes any sense at all. So yeah, those are my Flatland socks. And I'm also entering this into the Brooklyn Knit Folk Hipster Cal, because this has under 30 projects on the project page, on the pattern. But you should definitely go check it out and get the pattern over 30 projects. It is underappreciated. So the next project that I've been working a lot on is my mask Cardi, which, let me go get it. So for my mask Cardi, I am very far along now. I finished the body basically, and I have this vest looking item. So the pattern is Migration by Stacy Gerbman. It is a Brooklyn tweed pattern, but I'm not using Brooklyn tweed yarn. I'm using Bartlett Yarns 2-ply in sandstone, which is a really nice rustic, sheepy, sticky yarn that's going to make such a nice sweater fabric, and it's going to be super warm. And of course I'm going to wear inner layers under this, but my skin's not that sensitive to begin with, so I will be perfectly fine. It is a bottom-up cardigan, so you start from the bottom edge, and then you work your way up, and then divide for the left and right fronts and the back, continuing the cable pattern as you shape it. And since I have that body portion done, I am now working on the sleeves. This is how much I have on the sleeves. Not too much, but this has been a couple days of work, so I've been really kind of flying through this pattern, because the cable pattern, some people says it looks really impressive, but it's only a 6-row repeat, and you only cable in one of the rows. So the only thing is, it kind of tests my knitting stamina, because this yarn is sticky, and so it takes a lot of kind of force from my fingers and hands and arms to knit with it, so I can't knit on it for too long. Like with a nice smooth superwash merino yarn, I can knit forever and my fingers won't be sore. But here, with this really tactile experience, I'm not able to work with it for that long because my hands actually will get sore. But it's a really fun knit so far. This is going to be my Rhinebeck sweater, if I can get my Rhinebeck plans together. And yeah, I've talked about it before in previous episodes, so if you'd like to hear more about my thoughts on this project, then you should check out my project page or the or previous episodes where I talk about it. So my last project that I'm going to talk about in this episode that I've been working on isn't super, well, it isn't completely for me, but it was a really enjoyable project and has, in fact, been hanging on the back of my chair this entire time. Oops. It was caught on my chair wheel. It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. So this is a shawl that wasn't even cast on last episode and is now finished. And I think this might become a pattern of me casting on and finishing a shawl between every episode. Nah, this is just because it's been a while. So this is, well, let me tell you first about how this shawl came to be. So as I've talked about before, and I've interviewed my friends who are opening a yarn store, there is a yarn store, a local yarn store coming to me in my town, and it is called Narnia, which is a great name. And to raise some startup capital, they have a Kickstarter, which I'll talk more about later. And one of the Kickstarter perks is that they wanted me to design a shawl that, where the pattern would be available just through the Kickstarter. And it is inspired by various aspects of the town Montclair, which is where the shop will be. It's the next town over from me, and I talk about it like I live there because I basically spend all my time there. And I work there, and basically, yeah, it's kind of my home, and I sleep in where I live in East Orange is on the border of Montclair, so I feel like I live in Montclair, basically. So, anyway, so this shawl embeds various aspects of the town of Montclair, New Jersey. So if you're not too familiar with it, Montclair, New Jersey is a commuter suburb. A lot of people live in Montclair and commute to the city, but besides that, it has a really vibrant arts scene. It has an art museum, it has various theaters. The Wellmont Theater is a big one where they have pretty big names come in. They have a film festival that gets a lot of attention every year. They're working on getting more farmers markets and local artisans in. And basically, there's just a lot of people who are in the town and creative. There's our large knitting group, which is well over 100 people in our Facebook group. And there's just such a pool of creative energy in the town that I'm glad that I found this community. So this shawl is a crescent shawl. It's a little unconventional though. So the core of the shawl starts like most crescent shawls. You start with a garter tab cast on and you work your way out. It's meant to use a variegated or speckled multicolored skein. I'm holding it the wrong way, whoops. And throughout this section you have these textured stitches, which I'm calling the brush stitch to represent artists' paintbrushes. The multicolored section represents the diversity of the town, and this forms the heart of the shawl and really the heart of the artistic culture of Montclair. So the second section is where you cast on stitches using a short tail cast on and start working back and forth, joining to the first section to create the kind of a deep knitted on border. So you never end up with like hundreds and hundreds of stitches at the end of this giant crescent shawl like you would with if you just started with the crescent shawl and you worked center out. The side to side keeps things going, well, turns things around and keeps things going in a different direction. So it keeps the knitting interesting and makes a really cool color blocked effect. So the second section is alternates between mesh panels, which I'm calling the railroad stitch to represent the commuter rails across town, and which in this deep green is wedges of short rows and garter stitch. So I really have been enjoying using short rows and garter stitch to shape shawls into unique pieces. So look for that in future designs. The colors of the shawl, these are just test colors, but the shop Narnia is getting colorways custom dyed for them by Ancient Arts, which you can see more in the Kickstarter. But it's they also kind of complement what each section means. So the silver gray, of course, rails. The green in the short rows is the green in these wedges represents all the parks around town. And then, like I said, the variegated speckled colorway is the diversity and the arts and culture of the town. Oh, I never mentioned the name of this pattern. This shawl is called the Montclair Slayer. So let me show you a couple different ways to wear it. I like to wear my shawls like scarves, so I'm going to move all the way back. And I start with the center in the front, and then just kind of throw the ends to my sides, and it creates a nice scarf. So you mostly get the outsides of the scarf, but if you pull up the center of the scarf, you can get section 1 with the brush stitches to give you a nice cowl accent. So that's one way of wearing it. It is a very large scarf shawl. Uses about most of 3 skeins. So I really like wearing it this way. I really like the way it looks, especially with the ends of these large short row wedges. But another way I've been wearing it is wrapping it around my shoulders, kind of like a hap style. It's a very traditional way of wearing shawls. But with this size, it basically looks like a top. So I wrap the center. The center goes on the back of my neck, and then I take the sides and cross them behind me and tie a knot. Tie a double knot just to keep it secure. And with the size of this shawl, it looks like a nice top, and it can really cover a lot of skin. So I'm looking forward to wearing this in the late fall. That is the Montclair Slayer. I finished this, well, I used US size 5 needles for that, but I'm currently testing the shawl pattern right now. They might have to size down because my gauge tends to be a little tighter. And I know both of my testers tend to be looser knitters, so I'm waiting for that to get exact yardages that are the exact yardage and weights of yarn used in the shawl. And yeah. Oh wait, no. I was talking about the needles that I used in the shawl. For the first time, I used Addi Turbo lace needles, and I really like them. So my go-to needles are my ChiaoGoo fixed circulars. I have them in a bunch of sizes. I don't have an interchangeable set, so I don't have any input on what those are like. But for the fixed circulars, I love them. I really like the stiff cable and how the brushed metal is slick but not super slippery. In contrast, the Addi Turbo needles are super slick, and the cables are definitely softer. So sometimes like the cable would poke through because it would just be so bendy it could actually like pop through the stitches, but that was totally fine. It's still a nice, strong, flexible cable that didn't have too much memory, and I really liked knitting with the super slick tips. It went so fast, and I think that's how I got through that 3 skein shawl in such a short amount of time. So yeah, I really like the Addi Turbos, and they're lace tips. They're pointy. I don't think I could do the non-lace tips. I like sharp needles. So yeah, that's all about the Narnia Shawl. Those are all the projects I've been working on. Not all the projects I've been working on, but the main projects I've been working on to keep myself sane in the midst of all this. So that brings me to wrap up. We are pretty much at the end of the content of this episode. I have a quick plug for this Kickstarter I've been talking about. So my upcoming local yarn store, Narnia, is having a Kickstarter that you guys should totally go check out and support if you want, because they are offering, well, first you're supporting a great cause. You're helping to bring a local yarn store to a community that has been without one for a while and really needs a place to concentrate all of this energy and support a local business. And that I think will be a great addition to our community. Both the owners are really community minded, and they are super friendly. They're friendly, caring people that just really want to bring happiness to the group. So I really want the best for them. Well, I also want to teach at the store, so of course I want the store to succeed. So their Kickstarter is going to help them fund some startup costs like furniture, just like some investing in more stock, and also helping to fund custom colorways for the store from Ancient Arts. So Ancient Arts does a thing where they're willing to collaborate with local yarn stores to produce limited edition runs of custom colorways. So they are doing a kit of 3 different colors for the Montclair Slayer shawl, and that's one of the perks you can get. You can get the kit for if you pledge a certain amount, you can get single skeins of the custom yarn, of the exclusive yarns if you pledge different amounts. Other perks include just the shawl pattern itself, and you can get Yarnia branded swag and merch like a tape measure, stitch markers, water bottles, totes, a baseball cap. I really want the baseball cap to say ballin'. And they're just offering, great things for a great cause. And check out their Kickstarter, which I will link in the show notes, in the description bar, everything. And I'm just super excited, and you should check them out. So that was the Kickstarter. And then the last thing that I have for wrap up is that the Spindle Along is coming to a close. Thank you to everyone who has participated. I ended up extending it from July into August, and it's almost August 16th. That's 3 days away. I don't know when I'm going to be able to upload this, so the Spindle Along might be closed by then, but I'm going to tally up all the entries, and the prize I'm still deciding on, but basically I'm going to order something from Etsy, so once I draw the winner, then I am going to PM them I'm going to message them for their information so I can ship my Etsy order straight to them. And that's the Spindle Along. I don't know what my next make along will be. I need to really get on top of my just all this admin work and just get my life in order. So I hope everyone is doing well. I know a lot of things are going on in the world. I hope that knitting, crafting, spinning is giving you some peace from that, and that you are taking care of yourself and so that you can take care of others. All right? Your oxygen mask on first. Bye. Love you. I am really all over the place in this episode.